Hello, Packers fans, wherever you may be. It's time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. This is your midweek edition, giving you some news and notes around the NFL and the Green Bay Packers. And also, I've got some interesting stats that I dug out that would be very interesting for us to take a look at. The Packers had their first practice of the week today, and they did not have anything really determinable in the injury report. So I'm going to look at Matt LaFleur's statements before the practice and see if we can get some insights into injuries. So it's more of a news-heavy edition, along with some interesting stats that I dug up by looking at the data that I think will be very interesting for all of you. So let's go through some news and notes first, and then we'll go through the injury notes from Matt LaFleur, and then I'm going to go through some of these statistics that I think are very interesting, not only about where the Packers are right now, but their potential for improvement in some key areas and truly become an elite contender for the Super Bowl. So news today, the Packers have signed defensive lineman Dante Barnett and cornerback Tyron Herring to the practice squad. General Manager Brian Gutekunst announced the transactions on Wednesday. Barnett is a rookie and a native of Birmingham, England, and joins the Packers as part of the NFL's International Player Pathway Program. Last year and earlier this season, we used that International Pathway Program to have a kicker on the roster without it impacting the roster numbers. But now that we actually have two kickers on the active roster at the moment, we don't really have a need for a kicker in the practice squad. So adding a defensive lineman as part of the International Pathway Program makes a lot of sense. Barnett spent part of last offseason with the Bengals and began playing football at the age of 16. So that's a very interesting addition. He's 6'1", 275. So he's definitely on the smaller side for defensive line. He's more likely to be used as a edge, although he'd probably be used more as a special teamer at this point. But he'd be more of a defensive end than a defensive lineman, given that weight. A defensive tackle at 275 would not really be very useful for the Green Bay Packers right now. So interesting to see. It looks like he's just going to be a developmental player. Again, since he's part of the International Player Pathway Program, he technically does not take a roster spot or a practice squad spot. He's kind of like a free spot on the roster. At quarterback, Herring at 6'1", 201, so like the height for Herring, joins the Packers after originally signing with them in May of 2025, and he was a casualty at the end of training camp and spent part of the regular season on the practice squad for the Patriots. So that's interesting. He was released from the Patriots and was a free agent, and the Packers have added him. Again, it's just adding some cornerback depth to the practice squad. These are not players that are going to be very impactful in the immediate future, but you never know when a player could develop and become a quality depth player from the practice squad. Biggest news from today, really excited to see this, and I think it's well deserved. Jordan Love was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance during the game against the Steelers. He completed 29 of 37 passes for 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And he clearly was one of the keys to winning the game for the Packers. He's established a new career high in the regular season of 134.2 for passer rating. He also tied Brett Favre's 18-year-old franchise record with 20 straight completions. Who would have thought Brett Favre has the record for most completions? given his gunslinger mentality. I would have put money on Aaron Rodgers being the completion expert. But no, it looks like Brett Favre had 20 straight completions. Um, so Jordan Love's previous career best was 11 straight completions. So funny enough, I did see Jordan Love do a interview with Kay Adams earlier this week, and he was asked, "Did you know that you were in the middle of the completion streak?" And he said he had no idea. Nobody told him at the time. Obviously, he was focused on the game, but he did say that if he had known that he was tied, he wouldn't have thrown an incompletion into the dirt, which would have been his 21st completion. He probably would have eaten that play and tried to get another completion later on. I'm sure he was joking in that situation, but there's a part of him that would have loved to have set that record. So we do have some injury updates. Now, we do have the injury report from the Packers, but the first practice of the week, it has a lot of people doing limited participation, mainly because of aches and pains and getting some veteran rest. So looking at the injury report isn't particularly helpful so early in the week. We're going to look at that later on, Thursday, Friday, and see if it's going to impact the game. But Matt LaFleur did have some updates, and I want to go through those very, very interesting updates today. Matt LaFleur was asked if Lucas Van Ness was practicing this week. The answer was not today. It's still sort of day by day. We'll see where he's at, quote unquote. So it sounds to me like Lucas Van Ness most likely either isn't going to participate this week or he's going to be limited later on in the week, and maybe he could get in for that very important game against the Eagles. So in 2 weeks, the Green Bay Packers play the Eagles on Monday Night Football. That is the week that we want as many bodies as possible. So if you tell me Lucas Van Ness has to sit out this week so that he can actually play against the Eagles, I will take that 9 times out of 10. Probably 10 out of 10, actually. Matt LaFleur was asked on Devontae Wyatt's first game back. He said, "I thought he played well. He moved around well. He played physical. We're lucky to have him back." Watt had missed 2 games after injuring his knee October 28th. Watt had 3 hurries and a run stop against the Steelers. So great to see that it looks like Devontae Wyatt's return didn't have any issues physically. It looks like he was able to perform well. So that's all good news for the Green Bay Packers with regard to Wyatt. Hopefully he'll be in a situation where he'll be playing for the rest of the season, and they can absolutely start to ramp up Wyatt's reps. Again, Eagles. Eagles are the key right now. If you have to limit Watt so he could play 100% against the Eagles, do that this week. Because I'm not worried about the Panthers. I'm worried about beating the Eagles on Monday Night Football, because that is a huge game that will go a long way to determining first seed in the NFC. This is a very interesting one, and it really is disappointing to me. On Marshawn Lloyd, Matt LaFleur said, "I would not count on any time soon with regard to Marshawn Lloyd returning. He's been on injured reserve all season, so it's clear he's not close to being ready to practice." So that's really a disappointment. Marshawn Lloyd had a hamstring injury, and the fact that he isn't even close to being practicing is concerning at this point. It's been about 10 weeks since Marshawn Lloyd had that hamstring injury. I think it's actually closer to 11 weeks. So there's a couple of factors here. Number one, Marshawn Lloyd is a great talent. They probably don't want to risk hurting him. In addition, the Packers are doing well at the running back position right now. We don't have immediate need for Marshawn Lloyd, and in fact, activating him might push another running back off the roster. So it does make sense that they're being cautious here. On Dontavian Wicks practicing on Wednesday. He will not practice today, Matt LaFleur said. Wicks injured his calf in the second half of the Packers' win over the Arizona Cardinals. So again, Wicks probably won't be in this week. Again, I would rather have him back for the Eagles than against the Panthers. So I'm okay on that. So on Josh Jacobs, Matt LaFleur said, in my conversations with him, he did pretty good. I think I saw the burst. We have to do a better job around him. I think that means about utilizing him. Josh Jacobs is still dealing with a calf injury, and he played 34 snaps. Emmanuel Wilson played 27 snaps and led the team in rushing. So look for the Packers to start to push Josh Jacobs more, but still not fully utilize him, again, because we want him healthy for the game against the Eagles. In the game against the Eagles, it has to be Josh Jacobs' game. He has to be in there 80 to 90% of the snaps if the Packers want to beat the Eagles in 2 weeks. Matt LaFleur is also asked about Brandon McManus. McManus will kick today, was his only answer. So, looks like McManus is continuing to get back to full health. We know he missed a couple kicks on last Sunday. Now, I don't blame McManus for the 57-yard kick that was missed, because I feel that was a very risky kick, and I think the Packers should have punted in that situation and tried to pin the Steelers deep. I think LaFleur was really pushing for points at that point. So I don't blame McManus for a 57-yard miss. Probably 80 to 90% of the NFL would miss a 57-yard kick. The 45-yarder at the end of the half, though, McManus really should have hit. It was a 45-yard field goal. He should have hit that without any problem. So there's your injury updates. We did some news and notes. Now I want to talk about some interesting stats I found going into this week's game. Let's look at points per game in the NFL. Indianapolis Colts are number 1. I still think they played a really soft schedule, so I don't believe in the Colts until they beat a really good team. Okay? I know they beat the Broncos, but it was on a really shady field goal situation where I think really the Broncos were the better team there, and the narrative around Indianapolis would be very different if that kick had not been redone, because remember in that game between the Colts and the Broncos, the first kick was a miss, but they said that there was some leverage used, even though it didn't impact the kick in any way. It really was just a missed kick. The Colts would have another loss if that hadn't happened. So I really think the Colts are a little fraudulent right now. Number 2 at points per game, we have the Dallas Cowboys at 30.8. Detroit Lions at 30.7 are number 3. Buffalo is 29.6. The Packers are 27.6. But if you look at the last 3 games, the Packers would actually be third at 29.7. So the Packers' offense is 100% trending in the right direction, but we're already in the top 5 in points per game. More importantly, points per game in the fourth quarter. Green Bay is number 1 at 12.7 points per game. And in the last 3, they're at 17.3 points in the last quarter of the game. That reflects the fact that the Packers have come back the last 2 weeks, but it also shows you how explosive the Green Bay Packers can be, and hopefully we can get more consistent production for the Packers offense. But it's good to see. I would much rather be the highest scoring fourth quarter offense than the lowest scoring fourth quarter offense. So I think that's a really good stat for your Packers. Next up, first downs per game. Chargers are number 1 at 6.9. San Francisco 6.4 at number 2. Arizona 6.1. And the Green Bay Packers are number 4 at 6 first downs per game. So if the Packers can find a way to get one extra first down per game, they could be first in first downs per game. So that's a really good trend. And hopefully that is a sign of things to come for the Green Bay Packers. I really would love to see them. The top 4 is fine for first downs per game. I would love to see them get to number 1. Next, we have rushing yards per game. This is a little concerning. I'd like to see a lot more here. Buffalo is number 1 at points per game, yards per game at 64.4. The Green Bay Packers are 16th at rushing yards per game at 114.1. Now, if the Packers could get another 10 yards per game on the ground, they would be top 9 in rushing. So the Packers are actually very close to being top 10 at rushing if they can just get another 10 yards per game, which I think is very doable once Josh Jacobs is fully healthy. Let's look at completion percentage in the NFL. Detroit Lions are smoking hot at 75%. Tied for first with them is the New England Patriots at 75%. Green Bay Packers are number 3 at 70.89%, which I think is a really great stat for the Green Bay Packers and well above historical averages. So that's good to see that our completion percentage is so high. Top 3, top 4 completion percentage means your quarterback is playing at a really high level, which is really what we want to see for Jordan Love. Next up, we have passing yards per passing attempt. The Green Bay Packers are 3rd at 8.4. New England Patriots are 2nd at 8.9. And the Seattle Seahawks are at 9.0. In the last 3 games, however, the Packers would still be number 3, but at 10.7 yards per pass. So we're seeing an improvement for the Green Bay Packers. We can easily be number 1 in the league in yards per attempt if we continue to progress. Average passer rating in the NFL. New England is number 1 at 18.3. Detroit is number 2 at 18.0. Philadelphia is 14.4. And the Green Bay Packers are at 112.8. So 4th in average passer rating. That's a good sign, again, that Jordan Love is a top 5 quarterback on a number of metrics, including average passer rating so far. Let's take a look at team interceptions thrown per game. Philadelphia is first at 0.1. Tampa Bay, 0.3. Green Bay, 0.3. And the Rams at 0.3. So we're basically tied for second place for interceptions thrown per game. Obviously, you want that number to be as low as possible. So this narrative that Jordan Love is reckless with the ball is just not true. We are tied for second in the league for fewest interceptions per game. So take that to the bank. Top 5 giveaways, the team giveaways per game for the NFL. Philadelphia, 0.4. Green Bay, 0.4. Kansas City, 0.5. Indianapolis, 0.5. So we are tied for first place for giveaways per game, as seen as a positive number. So that's a great thing to see for the Green Bay Packers. Again, it says that not only is Jordan Love keeping doing good at avoiding turnovers, but the whole Green Bay Packers team is avoiding turnovers, and that's really good to see. Next up, we have defense. Opponents points per game. Packers are 10th at 21.4. If we can get to one less point allowed per game, we could be in the top 7 for points allowed per game. So the Green Bay Packers defense, we've had a couple of shootouts the last couple weeks. I expect that number to go down as we go through the schedule, and I think we will be top 5 or 6 for opponents' points per game. Incidentally, Houston is number 1 at 14.7, but we know they have significant struggles on offense. So it's not an end-all, be-all stat, but it is good to see the Packers have potential to significantly improve there. Okay, let's go to first quarter opponents' points per game. Number 1, the Green Bay Packers are number 1 in the first quarter for opponents' points per game at 0.9. 0.9 points per game for the Green Bay Packers in the first quarter. So what that really means is the Green Bay Packers are in a great potential to get a lead early in games. We've seen that happen against the Steelers. Technically, they were leading in the first quarter by a field goal. But what we'd like to see is the Green Bay Packers to get at least a touchdown in the first quarter, and then have that defense hold up, and then we'll be in a position where we can play with a lead most games this season, and that's a really good stat to take a look at. Opponents' points in the fourth quarter. Miami, ironically, leads at 9.4, Dallas 9.8, and Green Bay at 9.9. So we are third at opponents' points in the fourth quarter. So the defense for the Packers is really good in the first quarter, really good in the fourth quarter, and those are 2 really good stats we want to see for the Green Bay Packers. Hopefully those trends will continue, and we can use that to get a lead in games and then close out games in the fourth quarter. Really surprised that Miami is first in that stat. That's probably one of the few things where Miami is leading, and it could be just because opponents are so ahead of Miami more often than not that they aren't just pushing the ball down the field to score against the Dolphins. Opponents' yardage per game. Green Bay is 6th at 189.4. If we can just get that down by 7 yards, we would be the top 5 defense in yardage per game for opponents. That's really great to see. Rushing per game. Rushing yards per game. Packers are 3rd at 78.9. Seattle is 1st at 75.4. We can easily become the number 1 rush defense by the end of the season. So those are just a few interesting stats I wanted to go through. One more bonus stat for you. Sacks in the NFL. These are individual stats. Brian Burns has 10. Myles Garrett has 10. Byron Young of the Rams has 9. Nick Bonito has 8. And 2 Packers are next on the list. Rashawn Gary at 7.5 and Micah Parsons at 6.5 sacks. That means we have 2 top 6 sack leaders for the Green Bay Packers. Really good to see and a healthy sign on defense. So that's it for today. We're going to talk about news and notes probably Thursday as we get closer and closer to the game against the Cardinals. So we'll give you, the Panthers. So we'll have news and notes on Thursday and Friday, injury report Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday we'll do our regular keys to the game, and then Sunday we'll have a pre-game show. So we've got lots of potential for some great content. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so, because we are all about the Packers 24/7. And as always, go Pack Go. We'll see you in the next stream.